What's going on, guys? Sticks here with the Token Minorities, bringing you a deck that has kind of fallen out of favor recently, and that is Rainbow Road, centered around Xerneas from Breakthrough. And before I get into the deck, just a reminder that if you guys like this video or found it helpful, please leave a like, drop a comment, and maybe subscribe. It really does help us out a lot and lets us do more for you guys. And as for the question of the day, obviously Rainbow Road centers around, well, getting a lot of different type Pokemon onto your bench, 3 of which are the dual types Bisharp, Volcanion-EX, and Galvantula. And my question of the day really centers around that. What are your opinions of dual types? I know right when they came out in Steam Siege, everybody was like, oh, that's so cool. Well, at least I was. You know what? Not everybody. I was like, oh, that is so cool. I think that's such a great mechanic. And then in Evolutions, they skipped over it pretty completely. And then in Sun and Moon, it doesn't look like they're deciding to bring them back. So it might have been that dual types just kind of fell out of favor immediately. And my question of the day is, what is your guys' opinion? My opinion, I really like it. I don't want them to overdo it by giving like everything and its mother a dual typing. Like every time there is a Pokemon that has a dual type in the game, you give them a dual type in the TCG. But I do think here and there are really cool. Like Bisharp and Galvantula and Volcanion are all 3 really cool Pokemon that deserve to have double types. I mean, like Dark Steel, then you have like Water, Fire, and then the Lightning, Grass. I think that those are all really cool double types, and if you have a Pokemon with relatively unique typing, I think that they deserve to have dual types in the TCG, but unfortunately it looks like the TCG is getting rid of them, which makes me sad. But my question of the day is, what do you guys think? I know I've said that like 3 times, but let me know what your guys' opinion of double or dual types, whatever you want to call them, are, and in the description below what's your opinion and why. I would love to hear what you guys think. But anyway, like I said, this deck is centered around Xerneas, and you guys know the drill. I mean, you've probably seen this by now. Rainbow Road deck, just get as many Pokemon of different different typings on the bench as possible and just go from there. So the first type we have is normal, and of course that's going to be Shaymin. I mean, what the heck else is it going to be? Of course it's Shaymin. Setup lets you draw more cards, all of that, especially when you're using a deck that relies on Sky Field. Not only does playing Shaymin down not limit your bench space, but it actually helps you. I mean, Shaymin, when you play it down, draws you cards. I mean, that in itself helps a lot. But when it even powers up Xerneas even more, that is just like Shaymin's dream. Shaymin's dream is to be useful in a deck beyond just drawing cards, and this deck helps Shaymin's dream come true a little bit more. So the normal type is Shaymin. Like I said, the dark type is Bisharp, Dark and Steel, so there's 2 more types right there, and Bisharp actually can attack in itself. With Retaliate does 30, and then if any of your Pokemon were knocked out by damage from an opponent's attack during his or her last turn, this attack does 60 more. So run this thing up against a Fairy type, and I mean, although there will be some weird math in combination with like the Steel and Dark type, still able to hit things for super effective damage. Bisharp is really cool, and Retaliate is a single colorless energy which you can power up with the Fairy Energy. Obviously running 4 of the Xerneas, this is our main attacker, and we don't have 6 prizes worth of Xerneas, so we still want to run the max number of 4 to take a good prize trade against EXs. Running a single copy of Volcanion-EX, and really this guy's only here to power up our Rainbow Force. I mean, it's kind of useless overall. It's a Lysandre target with that high 3 retreat cost. It can't attack because we're not running any energy for Volcanic Heat. So you have to be careful about Volcanion. You have to be careful with like the Pitch Black Spear, the Fright Knight Yveltal, being able to Lysandre that thing in and just lock it there. But either way, too good of an opportunity, too good of a Pokemon to pass up, particularly with the unique dual typing and 2 types that we're not using in this deck. Then we are also running 2/2 of Joltik and Galvantula. Galvantula with that final Lightning and Grass, which again, we do not have multiple of in this deck. And then Double Thread also being an attack we can use with a single Fairy Energy. Does 30 to 2 of your opponent's bench Pokemon, and you apply weakness and resistance, able to 2-shot Shaymin. So that's just something worth noting, able to snipe those things down on the bench. And then finally, we're running a single copy of Hoopa-EX with the Scoundrel Ring ability, able to play that thing down. That is a Psychic type on the bench, and able to search out Shaymin and Hoopa. So Hoopa, playing that thing down, essentially turns into four types of Pokemon on your bench to power up Xerneas. Something worth noting, you can also run that promo Giratina that shuts down break Pokemon, but overall, I think Hoopa is still just a better overall play in this deck. And you might look at this deck and think, well, it's screwed if your opponent runs Parallel City. Not if you get set up first, because having Bisharp, Volcanion, and Galvantula on your bench, that is 6 types right there. That means that Xerneas will be hitting for 190 damage even if you're Parallel Citied. So this deck has outs to the main counters to Rainbow Road. But I mean, it's still fallen out of favor. It's a little too slow in some cases, but I still think it's really cool. As for the items, running 2 Max Elixir to kind of help power up Xerneas a little bit faster and not have to manually attach twice in order to be able to hit with Rainbow Force. Running 1 Special Charge to put back the DCEs that can get discarded by knocking out Xerneas, by Enhanced Hammer, all that stuff. 1 Super Rod to put some Xerneas back in the deck, or Bisharp and Galvantula if they get knocked out or discarded. 1 Switch. I mean, if you get a Volcanion, you don't have a Float Stone yet, you want to get that thing out of the active spot, go ahead and use the Switch. 3 Trainers Mail, would like to run 4, but unfortunately needed a little more room for other stuff. 4 Ultra Ball to get everything out. 4 via Seeker to be able to reuse all of our supporters. And as for these supporters, we are going very, very, very straightforward. 4-3 of Sycamore and N. I'm running 1 more N than I usually do because, I mean, I would normally run Pokemon Ranger in this spot, but Jolteon has just fallen so far out of favor that I haven't run into it at all, and even then you can Lysandre around it and stuff like that. So I decided to just add another draw supporter as opposed to the Pokemon Ranger. So 4 Sycamore, guaranteed draw support, 3 N for disruption, shuffling things back into your deck so you don't have to get rid of them. And then we're running 2 Lysandre because Lysandre just gets better and better. And I found the more I play this game, the more valuable Lysandre is as a supporter. So I definitely want to run 2 in this deck. 4 Sky Field, because even though, like I said, this deck kind of has the ability to work around the Parallel City, you still want as many bench spots as possible. So playing down a Sky Field, able to go ahead and just play that down, get 8 bench spots, and just hit for absurd amounts of damage with Xerneas. 2 EXP Share. I'm using EXP Share over Fighting Fury Belt because Xerneas, I mean, while 160 HP is very, very nice and is a heck of a lot better than 120, I just like EXP Share's ability to be able to instantly go into another Xerneas, not have to worry about like Max Elixir, not have to worry about attachments. You can just continually line up Xerneas to be able to hit for damage, and that's why I chose EXP Share over Fighting Fury Belt. But again, that was my opinion. Completely up to you. If you would like to run Fighting Fury Belt for that 10 extra damage and the extra longevity, then go for it. Running 2 Float Stones because of Volcanion and Hoopa being absurdly heavy. Well, Volcanion's absurdly heavy. Hoopa and Bisharp are annoyingly heavy, and Galvantula is just kind of like, meh, it's out there. So Float Stones are for those guys, so you don't have to use your Switch or manually retreat and stuff like that. 4 DCE, absolute max number. 4 Rainbow Force, and then 7 of the Fairy Energy, because, I mean, kind of have to have that to be able to use Rainbow Force. So, yeah, that is a deck, very straightforward, and it's made me kind of sad that this deck has fallen out of favor. I know that I was hating on it a little bit at the beginning, but the more I've played it, the more I like it, and I can see why it's fallen out of favor. It just can't really keep up with the top tier meta decks right now. Still a very fun deck to use and still very competitive, so you won't just auto lose if you use this deck. So highly recommend trying it, but either way, done rambling. Let's just go ahead and see this deck in action. Alrighty, we have found one against Biosector. Okay, that's actually a really, really awesome name. With a water and normal deck, so I'm assuming this is some kind of like water box deck of sorts or something like that. We do win the coin flip, so I would like to go first. I mean, you can technically go second with this deck, but especially if you draw a hand like this, you do not want to go second. Mostly because I don't have a single draw supporter, so that is phenomenal, and I draw into both my Lysandres turn 1, which is interesting to say the least. So this will be a pretty rough start. So I'll attach a DCE, play the Volcanion, and end my turn. Alrighty. Well, that's gonna be this is going to be slightly frustrating to say the least. And okay, my opponent plays, well, he'll be able to put me to sleep. Plays the Rough Seas. That's not a big deal yet, and hopefully it won't be a big deal at all because I'll be able to one-shot everything of my opponents with the Rainbow Force. So, I mean, I already have 70 damage on the board, thanks to a single Pokemon. I'll probably play the Sky Field to counter my opponent's rough season. Okay, this looks like a Golduck. Looks like a Golduck break version, water box or something like that. It does put me to sleep. However, I do wake up. That is very nice. And what I think, oh, thank you, Lord. Draw into a Sycamore. That is a beautiful top deck. Let's get a brand new hand. Get rid of both those Lysandres, and then hopefully get something going in. This actually works very, very nicely, because I'll be able to go ahead, play the Volcanion down, Ultra Ball, get rid of the Bisharp, and do I want to get rid of the VS Seeker or the Hoopa? Probably the Hoopa, just because, I mean, I already have the EXs that I would want to get out with my, I already have the EXs I would want to get out with, what am I trying to say? I already have the EXs I was trying to get out with Hoopa. There we go. Okay, I need to draw into a single energy, and I do not. Wow, don't draw into a single Fairy Energy at all. That is very, very unfortunate. I mean, on the bright side, I have a Sky Field, I have a VS Seeker for a Sycamore again, so I'll probably have to go through the vast majority of my deck before I'm able to really start attacking, and this is very unusual for this deck. This deck is usually very, very consistent, hits very hard, and is able to get going almost immediately. Occasionally, with like a Max Elixir variance, even as quickly as turn 1, you're able to get it off. So this is very unusual for this deck, but it does happen. It happens with every single deck. Like, even World Championship decks are susceptible to this type of slowness, and I just kind of had to hope that my opponent does poorly with Professor Birch's observations, which they do right there, and they're not able to get too ridiculously set up before I am. I would like to get another Xerneas in there. I'd like to start getting that thing powered up. I do know that I have a DCE in the discard pile, which is unfortunate. My opponent is able to get a Rough Seas with a Trainer's Mail, so probably going to counter my Sky Field. However, I do have Sky Field in my hand, so I'm not too worried about it at all, and my opponent does play a Max Elixir. If he hits it, we're not even in that much trouble, because Regice really does not shut us down at all. My opponent does decide to play the Rough Seas, and they're just going to go for a Chilling Side, put me to sleep, and if I stay asleep, not a big deal, because I have the switch. I can just switch into my Float Stone Volcanion and go from there. So there we go. Let's do that. Play the Float Stone onto the... Yeah, play the Float Stone onto the Shaymin, because I can attack with Bisharp, especially because Steel will be able to hit for super effective damage in this matchup. Play the Bisharp down right there, get even more damage on board, counter my opponent's Rough Seas with my Sky Field, and then via Seeker for a Sycamore to have a 0 discard Sycamore, sell 5, boom. And, finally, draw into some decent stuff. So let's play the energy onto the Xerneas, Ultra Ball, get rid of the other Fairy Energy and the N to grab another Xerneas. Probably should have not gotten rid of the N, but whatever. Play the Xerneas down, retreat into my Xerneas, and then I think I'm going to hold on to the Max Elixir for next turn. Yeah, I think I'm going to hold on to it. I do draw into a DCE, so if I can hit the Max Elixir... And, if I can just hit the Max Elixir, then I will have another Xerneas powered up. And would you look at that, already hitting for 220 damage. I know that was turn 3, and that is a lot slower than any viable or competitive deck should be. I'm like slurring my words at this point, sorry guys. But, I mean, this deck is still very fast, especially with Max Elixir, and this is just kind of one of those unusual encounters where you start very, very slowly, because you just draw into a bunch of cards that are only useful when you are already set up. So that's something that does happen, and happens to the best of decks. But either way, we are now set up. We have the ability to set up even further next turn, and this is just how powerful Xerneas can be with the right setup. And okay, my opponent does play that. I even get a Galvantula, so we're hitting for even more damage. Let's see, can we hit the Max Elixir? We do not. That is unfortunate. And then I'm going to hold on to the DCE because Bisharp can be powered up by the DCE, but so can my Xerneas. And okay, I get another DCE, so I really should have played that onto one of those guys. And the only reason I was holding on to my DCE was just in case my opponent managed to knock out my Xerneas. That way I would immediately have a Bisharp able to respond and OHKO the Regice or Articuno or whatever had managed to knock out my Xerneas, and I would still be in a fine position. My opponent does go for Resistance Blizzard. Does not matter one bit because I'm not an EX. So what I am going to do, play the DCE onto my Xerneas and then go for a Rainbow Force after playing the EXP share onto my Xerneas so that I have another attacker guaranteed for later, and then I draw into a Fairy Energy, which I'm going to slap onto Bisharp as well because Retaliate is powered up by a single Colorless energy. I want to save my DCEs for another Xerneas, and my opponent is going to just go ahead, get another Regice powered up, and then, yeah, he's going to be able to knock out the Xerneas, but thanks to EXP share, I will immediately be able to go into my other Xerneas and have that thing powered up and not have to waste my attachment for the turn on that guy. So yeah, this is the consistency of the deck coming through. And okay, there's the max potion, so my opponent obviously has this strategy around Water Energy and Golduck Break. That is completely fine with me. I'm gonna go for a Max Elixir. I mean, it doesn't matter at all in this matchup because I'm going to be one-shotting everything. Nothing is ever going to have damage on it. I mean, unless in a really weird situation where I hit for like a Rainbow Force for 70 or something like that, which definitely happens, don't get me wrong. But now that I have this set up the way I do, I'm going to be one-shotting everything because I have 8 different types of Pokemon on my bench right now. My opponent goes, you know what, that's the right play. The right play was definitely going for the Ice Beam, see if he could paralyze me, because if he had knocked me out, I would have just immediately responded with a Xerneas to knock him, with my other Xerneas to knock him out. And heck, I could have even gone into Bisharp and knocked him out with a Retaliate. So, I mean, this deck has plenty of options, and once you're able to get it going, and usually you can get it going pretty quickly, this deck is very, very fast and very, very powerful, and able to take advantage of the fact that Xerneas is not an EX, so you're able to come out on top in the prize trade of your main attacker. So that was a pretty solid first match, not set up as fast as I want to, but let's go ahead and try to find another one. Alrighty, we have found another one against Indana It with a... well, looks like we're up against water decks today, so that's something. My opponent will go for the coin flip. Hopefully we'll be able to go first. We do lose the coin flip. I mean, it's nice to see that somebody else is picking tails, but wait, we do get to go for what? Well, we get to go first. You know what? I mean, even though... Wow, voice crack, okay. I'm an adult, guys, I swear. But, okay, my opponent... What the heck is... How... I have not run into a single Golduck Break deck. Like, up to this point, I have not run into a single Golduck Break deck since the rotation. And all of a sudden, now that I'm playing Rainbow Road, this is the second one I run into already. And, oh, this is a Mega Gyarados Golduck Break. That's kind of a cool concept if you can get it set up, because Mega Gyarados is so bulky that your opponent could have a hard time knocking it out. And yes, I will kind of have a hard time knocking it out because I'll have to draw like I'll have to draw into like 8 different Pokemon in order to, well, I'll have to have 8 different types of Pokemon on my bench in order to knock it out. But I do get a bunch of mulligan cards, which is beautiful for me. I will immediately be able to grab my Xerneas to go ahead and start getting that thing somewhat set up at the very least. Let's play the Fairy Energy onto that, play the Sky Field. Go ahead and, yeah, let's go ahead and Ultra Ball, get rid of one Shaymin and the Sycamore, because, I mean, I'll still be able to Sycamore later for another Xerneas that I'll be able to play the EXP share on, and then I'll be able to Shaymin for 4 more cards and go from there. So yeah, let's Shaymin, get 5 cards, actually, sorry. I was counting the Shaymin as a card. I get another Xerneas and a bunch of cards that I don't want to discard. So I'm not even going to play the Xerneas, just because if my opponent counters my stadium, I don't want to have to discard that guy. So I am just going to immediately get some more cards. And I draw right back into it. Well, that's something. Let's go ahead and Trainers Mail, get a Float Stone. So, I mean, you know what? That's fine. Let's play the Float Stone onto my Volcanion, retreat into my Xerneas, and yeah, just end my turn right there. You know what? Despite only having 3 Pokemon on the bench, I will be able to take a knockout next turn on really anything my opponent has on the field right now. I mean, assuming he doesn't play like a Gyarados EX, which, I mean, I know he has, and he can definitely search out with this Dive Ball. Gyarados will be the only thing that I cannot OHKO, and even then I'll be able to... Will I be able to? So if I grab 5, no, that'll be 6. Nope, I won't quite be able to take the knockout on a Gyarados if my opponent decides to bring that thing active, although I'm not sure. I mean, you can go for Stormy Seas to try to accelerate energy to it, but if not, then you basically just damaged your Gyarados for absolutely nothing. And especially now that Spirit Link comes down on it, I don't think my opponent would want to risk it, and yeah, they decide not to, which in my opinion is a very smart play. I'm going to immediately play the DCE onto my Xerneas, and then I could play some stuff out. I really could, but I do not need to. I'm going to save my Sky Field and my Hoopa and my Ultra Ball for when I actually need the damage, or when I have the ability to discard my hand and I have no reason not to play them. So, which I mean is the reason for the Sycamore. Sycamore is going to come in. I have no reason to not play the Hoopa and the Xerneas if I'm going to discard them with Sycamore anyway, so I might as well play them down. And my opponent is just going to Evo Soda into a Gyarados, into a Mega Gyarados. So that thing is a little bit scary if it can get set up and just start one-shotting my Xerneas. Although I will be able to at very least two-shot it. Well, unless my opponent gets like a Golduck break setup, but because they don't have a Psyduck, well, they didn't have a Psyduck out this turn. They would have needed a Golduck this turn in order to max potion, but even then, they have the DCE on the Gyarados, which means it wouldn't attack, so, that's gross. So I draw into another Sky Field, but what I am going to go ahead and do, play the Sky Field just cause, and then I actually think I'm going to... Well, obviously play down the Joltik and the Hoopa. Might as well search out, see what else is there. Okay, I have another Xerneas left. I have a couple Sycamores. 3 DCE still in my deck. That is fine. And, yeah, you know what? Screw it. Let's Sycamore. Let's get as set up as possible. I get another Pawniard. That is beautiful. I get another Xerneas. So, do I want to play it down? Maybe. I whiff on a Max Elixir. That is fine. I'm going to go ahead and go for another Max Elixir. I whiff again, so slightly unfortunate. Let's play the energy onto my Xerneas and then see what I can get off the Trainer's Mail. Ooh, it is something good. It is a VS Seeker. And, you know what? Let's just Rainbow Force. Won't be able to take the knockout, but we will get darn close. And if my opponent counters the Stadium, I will just get rid of the... actually, you know what? I probably should have played down my other Xerneas to get rid of the Shaymin and the Hoopa. A little bit of an oversight on my part. But, I mean, still, I'll be able to hit for enough damage to where it really won't matter. And my opponent is going to... I mean, he has the Gyarados fully powered up. It is more than capable of knocking out my Xerneas. But at the same time, I will be able to immediately strike back with a Xerneas on the bench. And, yeah, I'm in a great position. Blast Geyser will hit me for a ton of damage. But my opponent... actually doesn't even have to discard the top cards of his deck because 120 is a magic number. And would you look at that, I immediately have another Xerneas powered up thanks to EXP share, and I still have my manual attachment for the turn. So that is great. Let's go ahead and play the Xerneas there. Play the Fairy Energy onto it, so I just have to draw into a DCE. Go ahead and VS Seeker into an N because it puts my opponent down to 5 while giving me a new hand of 5 as well. My opponent had way too many cards in their hand, more than I would have liked. So let's go ahead and Super Rod back in Bisharp, Xerneas, and Shaymin for some draw support, some of which I'm going to go for right now. Let's Ultra Ball into that Shaymin. And then draw into 5 more cards, hopefully into like a Bisharp and Galvantula, because that would be ideal. Being able to just, well, I get the Bisharp, so that's pretty awesome. Able to evolve my Pawniard, and then Yeah, let's play the EXP share onto that Xerneas. I have another Xerneas. However, because I don't have a Sycamore, I'm not going to bother with playing that Xerneas down just yet. And I'm able to take out the Gyarados in what would have been a one-shot anyway, thanks to the amount of damage that I was able to do with my Rainbow Force. So that just... yeah, Xerneas hits for absurd amounts of damage, especially with all the dual types now. I mean, it's incredible. It really is, and it's really, really cool to see. My opponent is going to go into his Articuno. Thing can put me to sleep, but if I manage to draw into my Switch, I will be able to switch into my Volcanion, and then just free treat right back out, or I could just switch into my other Xerneas on the bench. That I will probably play a DCE onto, although at the same time I could just play the regular Fairy Energy because I know I will have... because I know I'll still have another Xerneas thanks to EXP share, and then I can save the DCE. Maybe slap it onto another Xerneas, maybe play it onto like Pawniard in order to be... or Bisharp in order to be able to revenge immediately. My opponent is just going to Lysandre. Okay, that is a smart play. My opponent's going to Lysandre in the Bisharp, hope that I don't have the means of retreating it, and then he's going to try to stall with a Chilling Sigh. However, if I do wake up, which I do not, yeah, that's unfortunate, but let's see if I can draw into a Switch. So let's go ahead and play that. I get a Sycamore. Question is, do I want to go ahead and play the Sycamore? I mean, even though it'll put me down to a smaller... okay, come on. There we go. Even though it'll get rid of some of my Pokemon and some energy, I think my best play is Sycamore. Digging for that switch, which I do get. Let's switch into Xerneas. Let's switch into the new one just because. Play down the Galvantula for even more types of Pokemon. And then Rainbow Force for 280 damage. That is absolutely ridiculous. And then I have a Lysandre next turn to be able to bring up the Manaphy and knock that out with Rainbow Force. So... I mean, Xerneas is just so powerful if you can get it set up. And heck, even if my opponent plays a Parallel City, I will be able to discard Shaymin, Hoopa, Shaymin, and then like Xerneas, and I'll still have 6 types of Pokemon on the field. I know I probably wouldn't discard my other Xerneas because I need that thing to attack, but theoretically, even in Parallel City, you're still able to hit for 190 damage because of dual types, and I think that that is... just incredible. My opponent does get play down a Palkia-EX, play down a Regice, doesn't matter, we do win. Let's just play an energy on to Bisharp just because we are cool like that, bring in the Palkia because that thing's bulkier than Manaphy, but we don't care. We're going for a Rainbow Force, knocking that sucker out, taking our last 2 prizes and the victory. So I, again, able to pretty easily win that, but we do complete the daily challenge on top of that because Xerneas is able to hit for so much. And would you look at that, we hit for 1,160 damage. That is with a non-EX too. With a non-EX, we're able to hit for over 1,000 damage, and I think that that is absolutely ridiculous. I was very skeptical of Rainbow Road at first, not gonna lie. I did not think it would be that good. I didn't think it deserved of even being mentioned as a rogue deck, just because I thought that it was a very, like... it wasn't even necessarily a niche. I thought it was even more of a gimmick deck. However, since I have built the deck and since I have played with it, I have learned very, very differently, and I think that Rainbow Road, while not top tier, is a rogue deck that should definitely be planned for and watched out for. I mean, at least have like 1 or 2 cards that you can use to deal with it. But either way, I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video as much as I enjoyed making it. Like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff, and this is Styx, signing out. Why not? See you guys.